Ceann Comhairle, I moved a second reading of the Housing Emergency Measures in the Public Interest Bill 2018. Ceann Comhairle, this bill seeks to declare formally the housing and homelessness crisis a national emergency. The bill provides for the delimiting of the rights of landlords, banks and finance houses, including vulture funds, in order to prevent tenants and mortgage holders from eviction, as provided for under Bunreacht na Éireann and as advocated by Focus Ireland and indeed many other agencies dealing with homelessness. On the 29th of March last, the Taoiseach addressed the Oireachtas Select Committee on Finance, Public Expenditure and Reform, and he said, and I quote, "I have no difficulty whatsoever describing the housing shortage or the homelessness crisis as a national emergency." The situation, Ceann Comhairle, has worsened significantly since then. Comparing like with like figures, by September of this year, 2018, the total number of homeless had increased by 1,497 persons, including 442 extra adults and a shocking 1,055 extra children, reaching a total of 11,304 persons. Focus Ireland has also pointed out that 193 additional children became homeless in September of this year alone. Just last week, Professor Owen O'Sullivan, head of the School of Social Work and Social Policy at Trinity College Dublin, advised the Oireachtas Joint Committee on Housing Planning and Local Government that the housing situation would get worse next year. He said, and I quote, "Much more than 50% coming into homelessness are from the private rented sector." He said, "Rents are escalating rapidly." And he said, "Until we see something done about the right to terminate tenancies, we will see continuing flows into homelessness." Last Ceann Comhairle, yesterday we had shocking new figures for rent increases. Rents nationwide rose by 11.3% in the year to September, with no slowdown in sight. And average rents nationally were pushed to an all-time high of €1,334 per month, some €304 or 30% more expensive than during the Celtic Tiger boom. Average rent in Dublin is now near €2,000 per month. The Limerick rental growth exceeded 20% in the past year. It's quite clear now that the government's policy of rent pressure areas is simply not working. And indeed, Niamh Randall, national spokesperson at the Simon Communities, put it in a nutshell when she said on radio, and I quote, "Rents cannot be controlled while evictions from private rented sector continues. Tenants are afraid, last Ceann Comhairle, to complain lest they be evicted, and there is no national register of rents. New tenants have no way of knowing what rent was paid by a previous tenant and dare not ask lest they be excluded from consideration for scarce accommodation and end up homeless themselves." The government knows full well that their rent control policy of rent pressure zones is not working, and they have been repeatedly told this by the various homeless agencies. The dice is loaded in favour of landlords, last Ceann Comhairle. While some decent landlords are not taking advantage of this, the big commercial landlords, including the vultures, are, and Irish citizens are paying a heavy price. The common good, last Ceann Comhairle, has not been served by the current government policy. At least 500,000 people in the Republic are in housing situations that are causing severe distress, as stated by the homeless campaigner Father Peter McVerry at a conference in Liberty Hall recently. As legislators, we all have a responsibility to drastically change this situation in the interest of the common good. Already, Dáil Éireann has by a majority called on the government to propose emergency measures to do so. That private member's motion called on the government to declare the housing and homelessness crisis an emergency and to reduce the flow of adults and children into homelessness by emergency legislation to make it illegal for landlords, banks and investment funds to evict tenants and homeowners in mortgage distress into homelessness, and to provide for real security of tenure and real rent certainty, and to introduce measures to reduce the cost of rent, and to introduce a target date to end long-term homelessness and the need to sleep rough. As you know, Leas-Cheann Comhairle, as an opposition deputy, I am not allowed under standing orders to propose a money bill. Accordingly, this bill implements only measures to halt the worsening situation. Focus Ireland has repeatedly highlighted through its services and research that the main reason for families becoming homeless is that they are being evicted from their homes by private landlords due to properties being sold or repossessed. And to remedy this, the right to private property must be delimited as provided for in Oireachtas Éireann, Article 43(2)(2. And that article states, and I quote, "The state accordingly may, as occasion requires, delimit by law the exercise of the said rights with a view to reconciling their exercise with the exigencies of the common good." In addition, a large number of citizens are being subjected to unreasonable and extortionate rents, contrary to the common good, and the problem is worsening continuously, and this must be halted. This bill, Leas-Cheann Comhairle, in Section 1, provides that Dáil Éireann affirms in law that a housing emergency exists. Section 2 provides that a housing emergency will continue for a period of 3 years after the passing of this bill, and that the government will bring a review before both houses of the Oireachtas on the expiry of this 3-year period. Section 3 provides that no tenant shall be evicted from a buy-to-let dwelling, that is, a dwelling purchased for letting purposes during the period of this national housing emergency. Section 4 provides that there shall be no further increase in rents on dwellings. Section 5 provides that existing private rent shall be reduced to reasonable levels, having regard to the differential rent that would be payable by a tenant in situ to a local authority for a rental of a similar dwelling. And Section 6 provides that no resident of a mortgaged dwelling shall be evicted from that dwelling during the period of this national housing emergency. Under the Financial Emergency Measures in the Public Interest Acts, Leas-Cheann Comhairle, the state delimited the exercise of private property rights by public service pensioners. This bill seeks to use the same provision in Oireachtas Éireann to delimit the powers of landlords to evict people and to oppress them with unreasonable and extortionate rents. The measures enacted under this bill would supersede all existing law on the matters concerned while the emergency continues, and the housing emergency formally brought into existence by this measure will continue for a 3-year period from enactment. This will allow time, Leas-Cheann Comhairle, for the fundamental causes of the housing emergency to be addressed. And this, of course, will require, as we all know, the large-scale building of public housing on public lands. Father Peter McVerry, speaking at a seminar to mark the 50th anniversary of the founding of the civil rights movement, said recently that the government was facing what he called a catastrophe, with the housing crisis set to deepen. He called for a major government programme of social housing construction on a scale not seen in decades to alleviate the crisis. He said we would have a catastrophe coming down the road unless government policy changes. The government's response to homelessness and social housing was to provide 3 out of every 4 houses in the private rented sector. But that sector was part of the problem, not part of the solution. Most people becoming homeless, he said, are out because they were evicted from the private rented sector. This bill does not provide for the increased building of public housing on public land. If it did, it would have been ruled out of order as a money bill. But it does implement measures for the common good to prevent the situation continuing to worsen and provide some alleviation of the extreme distress being suffered by huge numbers of people, while long-term solutions are put in place. Indeed, its passage would force the government to accept that its current housing policies have failed. It would give an opportunity to the Oireachtas members to change the failed policy of this minority government. Some deputies may have difficulty with some of the measures proposed. Others may have additional proposals. These can be discussed at committee stage, where detailed amendments to the bill can be tabled and discussed, and I appeal to members to allow the bill to be tabled and to proceed to committee stage. At the end of a 3-year period of the national housing emergency, the Oireachtas will review the situation and consider how to proceed for the common good in the context of the housing and homelessness situation at that time. Les Ciancóra, I move the reading of the second stage, and again I appeal to the members of the Dáil, and indeed particularly to Fianna Fáil and to the Government to support this bill, which is crucially necessary to address the disastrous housing situation in this country currently. Thank you.